And just so you know, John, even though we're connected over Squadcast and we could see each other, that the video is not going to be published as part of the podcast. So That means you listening, you're missing a whole lot. Me and John are two seriously good-looking people.
We are two good-looking guys.
All right, we got to start this before it gets nutty. Here we go. Yes. Feel free to grunt, John. Yes. Oh my goodness! And here I am, riding my level down on the Mix Pre 6. I love that. Actually, I'm riding the music down. Anyway, welcome to the show. This is the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for the likes of E+, and Forbes, Johnson & Johnson, Dun & Bradstreet, lots of others. Every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We talk shop with podcast producers, engineers, and other specialists. We really get into the details here. This is not a, we go deep on this show. I have a background in audio engineering in the music business, and since I entered podcasting about 6 or 7 years ago, I noticed a huge lack of audio skills in the podcasting world. Even people who are podcast producers, they don't have many skills. So anyway, that's why I started Podcast Engineering School. I don't know if you heard about that. If you go to podcastengineeringschool.com, you can check out all that. If you implement the best of what you learn here, guess what? Your podcast will sound a lot better, and you'll spend less time producing them. That and the timing aspect, how much time you spend producing stuff, that's really important. Would you say, John?
Absolutely, it is. The
Yeah.
best on the inside, the best you can do on the front side makes it so much easier on the back side.
That's right. Easier on the backside. Do we need to print up shirts that say that? Barry, you like that as a t-shirt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course, Barry's here with me. He's in studio. He's my old maintenance guy in my old building. And one thing I need to tell you about is my guest today, John Bukenas.
I'm from your old stomping grounds, from Jersey.
New Jersey. Yes, John Bukenas, he owns and runs Audio Editing Solutions. So you basically produce podcasts for other people in terms of recording them, editing them, and just doing everything, right, John?
Yeah, I started out as a podcaster, and I was so horrible at it that I needed to edit, and then I learned how to edit, and then I started editing for other people, and then it just kind of morphed into a part-time thing and then a full-time thing.
That's really cool. And you're one of the most recent graduates of Podcast Engineering School as well. We just finished, what was it, last week, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, last week.
I had a ball with that class. I can't read a book to learn. I'm a visual person. If I can see it happen or someone can tell me how to do it, that's one thing. But reading it, it doesn't work for me. And that's what I really enjoyed about taking to school. And the other thing is, too, that, I've produced a lot of podcasts. And there's always a different way of doing something, a different perspective. And I learned a lot, an amazing amount from taking the class.
Right. And yeah, I just saw your note in our private Slack group that one of your clients actually had just emailed you and said, wow, the show is sounding awesome these days. Thank you, John.
Yeah, it was actually the She Podcast. And we had an issue. So Jessica, the one co-host, lives about half an hour from me. She had buttered her keyboard on her Mac computer, so she couldn't record from her house.
Oh.
So she drove here to the studio. Oh. And then she got, she went from a ATR 2100 microphone to my RE320. And then I just kind of mixed everything in and kind of just used everything you showed me. And it really made a big difference. So, and when you have a client just say, not out of the blue, just say, wow, what happened? I mean, you really made that. I mean, it gives me goosebumps, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, that just proves what you got from the course and everything. And I love it because you are in the perfect position to take Podcast Engineering School, to enroll in the course, because you had some experience and you just needed that extra many little tidbits of great information. And a lot of big information too, not just tidbits. I mean, we covered a lot. And so the course really was able to push you to the level of a real professional. And of course, that means, raising your prices and getting clients who are going to pay you more and, making a better living. That's the whole idea.
filling my studio full of equipment.
Yeah, buying stuff. I know. You bought some stuff. Well, we're going to talk about that because over the years, you've morphed your studio. I mean, we all do that, right? We all start out with certain equipment, and then you find something that's better, like you upgrade your microphone maybe, and then, 6 months or a year later, you upgrade your mixer and all that. So you've gone through many iterations of a studio, just I think most of us have, actually. So that's what we're going to do. We're not going to do a speed round today. Unless, you know what? Let's do a speed round with what you're using these days, like that new equipment you got and how you have it set up. Let's just tell us that real quick, what it is. Start from the microphones and where they're going, what equipment they're going through, where they're being recorded, and also the post-production steps too.
Okay, so I have an RE320 microphone. It is going into the DBX 286S. And then from there, it goes into the Mackie mixer, which I don't even know the number of this one. It's the same one you have.
Yeah, that's a 1402. Yeah, 1402.
No, I don't know. It's not a 1402. It's because that's what I had.
No, I'm sorry. 1624. I'm sorry.
That's right. It's a 1624. The 1402 was kicked to the curb.
That's right. That's my old one. I get confused. I don't use... these days I'm not using
exactly
either.
What I had, same thing. And then it comes out of that, and it runs into a Foresight...
Focusrite?
i820. And then from there, it is running into my MacBook Pro, and I'm recording my side of everything in Adobe Audition.
Nice. So you got the Focusrite 18i20 going into the MacBook Pro Audition, and then you also do a show where you have a few other people right there in studio with you, correct?
Yeah, I have a show that I do with a friend of mine from college, and then we have like different co-hosts, whoever decides to come down the steps and comes and sits down with us. Nice. And we were using ATR 2100s, and then I had a Shure SM58. That was the first mic I had, and I had it for 6 years. There's nothing really wrong with it.
Yeah.
But then I saw some kind of Facebook post in a podcasting group, and they're like, "Oh, I went from this to this to this," and I said, "All right, I've always been looking at these microphones," and I said I always wanted an Electro Voice RE. It was either RE20 or RE320, and I listened to both of them, and I sounded better on the 320 than I did on the 20, so I went for that. And then my co-host is like, "Well, how come I get the rotten mic?" And I'm like, "Okay, so now I get that one for him, and then we got one for the other one." So now we all have these mics.
Nice. And so when you record locally, you just obviously record all three mics into Adobe Audition.
That's correct.
All right. And then you do all your post-production in Adobe Audition?
Yes. I was using a Phonic multi-track, and I was running everything through that. But I don't have to do that anymore because I have a lot of plugins now, and I do all the processing myself. And what I like about Adobe Audition is that it has what's called match volume. So I can match volume everything, each track to, my mono track's -19, stereo track's -16, LUFS. So I can do that all there. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, that is really nice. We'll talk more about that. Okay, so let's step back in time then to when you first started, setting up your studio there. And did you start doing a show yourself and then started producing for other people, or did they both happen at the same time?
I started doing a show for myself. Okay, so what happened was I saw this app on my phone that said podcast. I said, "What is this?"
Cool.
And I listened. And I said, "Wow, this is kind of like talk radio, and I think I can do this." And I used to be a DJ back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I still had a mixer. And so I said, well, I'll go get my mixer. And I don't even know what that was, to be quite honest with you. Right. And I tried to plug everything into that, and that didn't work at all. So I took a course. I took Cliff Ravenscraft's course.
Nice.
And, he had a setup. I wasn't really ready for that kind of financial commitment. So what I did was I just got a Behringer mixer, a small Behringer mixer, one microphone, and a computer. And I just started doing a podcast, about weight loss, which didn't really go too well, but that's how I started.
Right.
And then I kind of fell into a company called TV Talk, which lasted about a year, where we were doing 20-minute recap shows of what was on TV. And then they were looking for an editor. And I said, well, I can edit. So Daryl Darnell, who's been on this show, he hired me. and kind of taught me, gave me the speed lightning round on how to edit. Nice. And it started there. And then when TV Talk decided to just shut doors, I wasn't doing anything. And I was just happened to edit a show that Daniel J. Lewis was doing. And then I saw on Twitter he was looking for an editor. And I said, what am I? Chopped liver over here? And he says, I can't afford you. I said, how do you know? We haven't even talked. So Daniel was my first client. He's still my client. I've been editing the Audacity of the podcast and all his shows for, I guess, 3 years now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he was a great mentor. He taught me a lot.
Yeah.
And I just started picking up a client here, client there. And then my nephew, who was, he got out of college. He couldn't find a job. He's going to start working at a car wash. And I said, that's a shame you don't want to edit audio. You could do what I do. He says, teach me. So I gave him a course, and he's my partner now. And he does about the same amount of shows that I do.
Nice. That's awesome. So right in the beginning there, what was when was this, by the way? How many years ago?
It was in 2012.
Okay. Wow. So, and what was your audio setup back then and computer?
It was the Shure SM58 microphone into the Behringer mixer, and from that right into the computer. And then I would record on Audacity, and everything I did, all the editing, processing, and everything was done on Audacity.
Right.
And then Daniel, when I started working for him, he said, I want you to start working in Audition. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I don't want to learn another program. And he's like, yeah, you're going to learn it. Yeah. So it was tough because I would, it was like speaking another language. It was like trying to go from English to Spanish. You would try to transfer with your knowledge. And then Daniel said, listen, take and delete Audacity off of your computer and just start working on Audition. And I did that. And now I love Audition. To me, it's the most, again, it's expensive because you've got to pay for it every month, but I also use, Premiere Pro and Photoshop and all that. So to me, it's almost like having a free digital audio workstation.
Yeah. Yeah. Audition's, if you're using Photoshop and some other of those modules, then it's definitely worth it. And it is a great program. It's great because it has the multi-track DAW side of it. Then it has the stereo editing side of it too. And has the match loudness for the LUFs. I mean, it has everything. It's nice. All right, so then as you started growing your business, what microphones did you get after your SM58? Did you go right to the RE320?
Well, I took this podcasting engineering school class. And then, I saw what was going on over there, and then I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to, in for a penny, in for a pound. So that's when I went crazy and, melted a credit card and had Amazon delivering boxes to my house every couple weeks. You know what I did first was I saw, because it was all shiny and new, I saw the Zoom L12 live track.
Right.
I bought that, and I could not get it to work. And that was probably one of the reasons why I took the course, too, is I was like, you know what, I want to learn how to mixers work, and why can't I figure out this mixer? Why is it that every time I use this mixer, and to be honest with you, what I learned was that wasn't the mixer for me. And I boxed it up, and it sits over here against the wall mocking me. Oh. Anybody want an L12 mixer, just let me know. And once we started talking and I took the course, I could see, especially the way sound moves through your, from your microphone into your mixer, from your mixer into your processors. And I could see that I like the analog better than the digital because I can see the analog and I can troubleshoot the analog. With digital, it goes into a box. You don't know what's going on in the box, and then it comes out the other side, maybe.
Yeah, that's one good thing about using a physical mixer is that you have full control, and you can easily spot where the problem is happening. And that's not having a physical mixer is not the right answer for everybody, especially if someone's just at home by themselves. They certainly don't need a Mackie 1642, which is a 16-channel mixer with 4 aux sends, which is awesome. But the reason it's good for you, and the reason, I have the same one. The reason it's good for us is because if you have people in person, and if you have several different scenarios in which you're recording, where you're bringing in different things, and it's not just one standard setup. If you have a mixer, it's really versatile, and you can troubleshoot it easily.
What I think a lot of people do, and this is just from what I've seen so far, is someone will go out and they say, okay, I want to start a podcast. So everybody says, okay, go get the ATR 2100. So you get that, you plug it in your computer, and then you plug your earphones, you try to, your headset into the back of the microphone or the computer, and you can hear everybody else, but you can't hear yourself. And I think it's really important to be able to hear yourself when you're talking into a microphone, because if you don't know if you're popping your P's, you don't know if you're on mic, you have no idea. You can hear yourself talking, but you have no idea what the quality of that sound is. So now I'm a big fan of taking that microphone, if you're going to use an ATR 2100, and getting a audio interface and using an audio interface to go in. So that way, at least you can have a set of, your headphones, you can hear yourself. Because if you can't hear yourself, or if there's a noise or a hum or a bumping of the microphone, you can't tell. And, like I said, and then once you have the audio and it's a pile of hot garbage, now you've got a mess on your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. I somehow, I'm just thinking that I think it is possible if you, like you said, if you plug your earbuds into the back of the ATR 2100 mic itself, you can hear the computer, but I'm not sure. I think there might be a way where you can hear yourself that way as well.
I haven't found one. I've used it before because sometimes if I just have my laptop upstairs and I have 4 ATR 21s laying around here, I'll just grab it, plug it in if I'm going to talk to somebody, and I cannot figure out how to hear myself, either through headphones. I haven't been able to figure that out myself. So maybe if there is, I'd love to know how.
Yeah, and it's probably not on the mic itself, I don't think there's any settings or anything. So it might be in terms of a setting in the computer. Because actually, when you plug in an ATR 2100, it is a microphone, but it's also an audio interface, right? Technically speaking, because that's how you're sending audio into the computer, and that's how you're getting audio out of the computer. So there may be other settings. That's an interesting question. If you're listening to this and you know the answer to that, you can actually comment on the post for this episode on podcastengineeringschool.com or on social media. Just tag me and John. So a mixer. So everyone doesn't need a mixer. You only need a mixer if you need a mixer, which is if you're doing different things and you have more than one person, more people in person than just yourself. So all right. So now you're using the RE320s, which is a great mic. I mean, let's talk about the RE320 for a second. It's one of those mics, and I kind of always say this, but like if I had to get one mic to use for everything and everybody and every situation, I'd probably get that mic. I think I just got lucky because Mark Johansson offered me this vintage RE20 I think it's from the late 80s or maybe 80s, I don't know when. But he offered me that because he bought it on eBay and he made sure it worked really well and refurbished it a little bit. If I wasn't using this mic, I would probably use an RE320. So it's just a great mic, right?
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. It makes a big difference. It has it gives you like a deeper tone to your voice, and it doesn't pick up every noise, but it picks up enough noise. It picks up enough. It has a nice pattern.
Right.
The way I have the microphones in here, I don't get a lot of back talk through them, so it is nice.
Yeah, and also it has a very high output. So, for some microphones, like the classic low output microphone is the Shure SM7B. That's why people get, the cloud lifters and the FET heads to boost the signal coming out of a Shure SM7B. But the RE320 is known to be one of the highest output microphones there is, which is actually helpful because the stronger the signal coming out of the mic, it picks up less like noise in the mic cable itself, from RF noise and any other noise coming through the air. So
what was one of the things I had to learn first off when I first started this microphone? I didn't have to drive it so hard with the amps. I did, because when I tried to drive it so hard, it picked up everything. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I don't know if I can use this. And then I just started backing things down. Again, you have to play with it. It takes a little while. It took me about a week to kind of tune this thing in to my voice and just using it for that. And like I said, I really do enjoy it. And like I said, with the boom arm, I don't have that noise and I can actually move it a little bit. So it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. One classic mistake that that people make in podcasting is like they'll get like a cheap mixer, like a little, like a 2-channel or a 4-channel mixer. Sometimes it's a USB mixer, like a really small cheap mixer, like $50 or something. And then they'll plug in a mic which doesn't have a very high output. And then on the mixer, they try to crank the mic pre, like, they need more levels, so they crank it up, and then it becomes noisy and all this. So that's where, well, first of all, those cheap mixers are kind of tough because sometimes they're handy, but, if they're cheap, it's going to affect the sound, right? A little bit, not too much. They're okay if you know how to use it and you do the gain staging properly. But my whole point in bringing this up is that in cases like that, having a mic like an RE320 is helpful because you don't have to drive that preamp as much on cheaper gear. So you have that plugged into the 286S, of course, the DBX 286S, the classic channel strip plugin, which has the mic preamp, it has a compressor, it has a gate, it has a couple tone controls. So what
the de-esser has a de-esser on it, which is kind of nice.
De-esser, yeah, that's really helpful for broadcasting live. That kind of stuff is helpful. De-essers are tricky. I recently did a recording where the guest was using a de-esser, and they were using a DBX 286S, and it was de-essing to tape, meaning the recorded signal had been de-essed, right? So the sibilance was a lot less, and it was a little too much. So some of the S's like disappeared, like you couldn't hear it, and it's like you can't undo that, right? If you record something that with a de-esser on it and you overdo it, that you can't really get that back because the sibilance, the S's, are severely reduced or eliminated, and you just can't get it back. So that's why when you do any processing to tape, and of course to tape means before it's recorded, right? We still say to tape. We still use tape as like the recorder, especially in like the journalism audio recording, like Gimlet Media and stuff like that. They say to tape because it's not tape, but that's the way to say on the way to being recorded, right? It's easier to say to tape. But yeah, you got to be careful. So what do you do? How are you using your 286S?
To be honest with you, I just put a little bit of compression on it, and I don't use the de-esser. And I do have, and this was the thing that took me the longest to figure out, was the expander gate, because sometimes where I am, it's noisy. So then I didn't want that noise in the background. So then I would lift the gate up, and then that was cutting off some of my voice and some of the stuff I was saying. So then I had to just realize that, I'm just going to turn that down a little bit. And, for me, and then I just use a little bit at the very end. I just add like just a couple dB of gain coming out of here. And that makes a big difference.
Oh, like the
what
makeup
I like
gain?
about this is, pickup gain. What I like about this is I can adjust each microphone different for each guest and host.
Right.
My co-host has a different voice, a little higher, and I can use I can just play with a little bit, and I have him all set up now. So we sound better. And again, it's just fun to kind of play with this. I'm more, it's not that I don't, for me, the tech side of this has always been something I like to play with. And for me, I always want to sound, I've always wanted to sound like a radio show. Like if you were going to listen, you want to sound like a radio show. And that was what I've been striving to do. And I try to strive for that for my clients too. You don't need, and then here's the other thing, you don't need all this to have that kind of quality, to be quite honest with you. I think that, to be honest with you, the ATR 2100, it's a great microphone. You just have to process the audio a little bit differently, and you can get some rich sounds out of that too.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. I mean, it also has a lot to do with like microphone technique and, background noise and that kind of thing. So yeah, some of the less expensive equipment, if you use it properly in the right situations, that can be perfectly fine. And that could sound like a radio show for sure. A lot of my clients use ATR 2100s. I'm sure a lot of your clients use ATR 2100s, right?
Mm-hmm, yes. It's funny. One of the clients that I just picked up, it's two women that are in Canada, and they just use a Zoom recorder in the car because they say they always have their best conversations in the car.
Nice.
And it's a great show. It's a funny little show that they do. It's about an hour long, and they just use it now. First they were using their phone, but then they went to the Zoom H6 recorder, and that just needed a little bit more processing. So basically what I do is they send it to me, and I just process it, compress a little bit, bring it up, and then just set the loudness and then send it back to them. There's no editing. It's just they start and they go for an hour. And, you can tell they're in a car, but it's not distracting at all.
Right.
So it's kind of funny. Some people sit outside, or I have clients that, it's a show about craft beer, and she goes with her recorder. She has almost like a backpack, and she has cords coming out of it and all, and she sets up everything, and boom, they start and they record, and you have the background noise. And also, it doesn't, like I said, doesn't always have to sound like that, but whatever you're doing, you got to paint a picture. Audio is painting a picture, and that's what you try to do here.
Yeah, and in a loud bar or a bar, maybe it's not loud, but there's background noise in a bar. Like those are the times when your proximity to the microphone makes a huge difference. Like if you were to take, for instance, let's talk about our favorite mic, the Blue Yeti. If you took a Blue Yeti into a bar and placed it on the bar and let's say you were sitting on the stool next to your guest, and then you and your guest face each other, and the Blue Yeti is on the bar, like off to the side, and it's probably 2 feet away or 2.5 feet away. That would be an epic worst recording ever. Like that would be terrible. But if the people were, if there was two separate mics, like each person was wearing a headset going into a Zoom recorder, let's say, that would be way better. You'd still hear the background, but you'd hear mostly the people's voices. So that's the thing. Proximity to a microphone when there's background noise is really important.
Well, to me, like I said, that the mic technique, getting somebody to learn the mic technique is huge. And when I first started working with her, there was a lot more background noise, and I told her, you got to get up on it, up on the mics. You got to get your guests up on the mics, for the simple fact that they have to be able to, if not, then the mic's going to pick up something. It's just going to bring up all that background noise. And then I'm not going to be able to get that out of there. So if you're on the mics, the background noise isn't as high, and you get you get ambiance from the room, but it's not overwhelming. I've had clients that have come in and sent it to me, and they said, can you fix this? And I said, I can't even hear your voice. I can't tell your voice from the crowd. It just sounds like a crowd noise, like people are milling around in a Walmart, and I don't know what to do with it. Sorry.
I just had one of those. It was from a conference floor, like the floor of a trade show conference or something, and it was it was rough. I mean, you could hear the people talking, but the people there must have been people literally standing like 2 feet away from them having a conversation, and that's crazy. But I want to ask you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, you're trying to sit there and figure out the voice, and you hear them saying, "Well, what do you want to go to Chick-fil-A, or do you want to go?" And I'm like, wait a minute. Who am I listening to? I don't think I'm listening to the host and the guest. I think I'm listening to people in the background.
That's classic. So your two hosts who sit in the car and record with a Zoom H6, tell me how they do that? Do they put the H6? They set it down somewhere, and obviously the car's not moving, right?
The car's not moving, but sometimes, because they're up in Canada, in the middle of Canada, sometimes the air conditioner's on or the heater.
Oh,
and so what would happen now was, I sent them, because they have lavalier mics. And so I said, okay, but you can't plug the lavalier mics into the H6. So they have these adapters that you can get that they're 1/8 inch. And you plug them in. Yes, they are XLR to 1/8 inch microphone cords. So I said, well, let's try it. So I sent one up to there, and, two. And then they went to the car, and they thought they were microphones. So they plugged them in, and I'm like, I can't hear anything.
Oh.
I said, where do you have the microphones? And they're like, they're in the side. I go, no, the microphones you plug in, the lapel microphones. They go, oh, we don't need them. We left them at home. I'm like, no, they're adapters. You plug the microphone into the adapters, and, and we're still working on that right now. But it doesn't sound bad. I mean, just a little bit of noise reduction, little compression, and it sounds great.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Two lavaliers that close to each other in a car. That's
Well, we haven't tried that yet. I don't know if it's going to work.
oh.
Maybe just having the only thing I would recommend is what I'm going to try to do is see if they can get it a little higher, so it's between the two of them, so it's a little higher. Because if not, it's about 2 feet. It's about 2 feet away from them, sitting on the console between the two of them.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I have to say, the Zoom microphones really do. It works well. I mean, it picks up. It really does pick up well. In that situation.
Yeah, and also the other thing is well, first of all, if they move around, that'll affect the sound. But also when they turn their head, like if they're looking forward and talking versus looking at each other, that'll sound significantly different. It's very interesting. So many variables in that situation.
Oh, it was funny when I first started working with them. They just went to the Zoom, and the first time they used it, I listened to the show, and I had to put I couldn't even hear it. It was so low. It was somewhere around 35 LUFS, and it was so hard to hear. So I said, send that to me so I can, boost it up. So all I was doing was bringing it in and boosting it up to, negative 16 LUFS and then sending it back. And they're like, so then I do that, and they're like, well, I kind of hear where we're off mic. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you're in a car and the mic's sitting down there and you're turning your head. So the next time I used some compression and then kind of brought everything up, and it sounds a lot better. But it's so funny that at first they didn't hear anything, but then when someone does some processing, now all of a sudden everybody's picky.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that's similar things have happened with several of my clients where they don't know. People who aren't into audio, they don't know things. So you have to first point it out gently, and then they go, oh, and then next time they can hear it themselves. And so it's almost like you're training them to do, to use the right production processes, basically. But it works. Over time, they do learn. I recently had a client who took a Zoom H4 on the road, and a Zoom H4 has 2 XLR inputs in the bottom of it. And the client was plugging in the 2 mics, but the Zoom was recording the 2 mics on top, the XY mics on the top of the H4. It wasn't recording the direct mic signal because that's a setting within the H4. Now, you can record all 4. You can record the 2 mics that you plug in as well as the XY mics on top of the H4n, but that's a setting. You have to set it to record those 4 tracks. That's why it's an H4, because it's 4 tracks. But, so I had to figure it out. I don't own an H4, so I had to go look and say, what's happening here? Because she told me, oh, I am plugging in the mic, so what's the problem? And I had to go find out that, it's actually a setting. You have to tell the H4 to record those 2 XLR mics that are coming in and not just record the XY mics.
The biggest fear that I have sometimes is when clients that they've just started podcasting and they get like this big break, they get to do this interview, and I say, well, how are you going to record that? And they go, well, I just bought this Zoom recorder and I have 2 microphones, and I'll go there and I'll figure it out. And I'm like, no, we have to figure it out now. You can't just get there and figure it out. You have to interview your kids and your husband, and you have to figure all this out. You have to test it. And I just had one client, and this is what I love about podcasting and podcasters. So I had one client. She lives in California. She just started a true crime podcast, and she was going to do this really big interview with somebody from the A&E network. So, and she's like, yeah, I'm just going to try to figure it out. I'll get there. I'll plug the microphones in and see how it works. I'm like, no, that's not how it's, no. So I called a buddy of mine who also has a show out in California, and I said, listen, can you go there and help her? Because he's in a band, he knows sound engineering and all that. So all I wanted him to do was go there and set up the Zoom recorder with the microphones. Not him. He loaded in mixer, all kinds of microphones, cables. He went up there and he did a phenomenal job. He had them all on mic and everything, and it was a great interview. The audio quality was really good. And I'm just thinking to myself that, that could have been a disaster. But, because of, somebody knowing a little bit more about audio engineering, he went up there and just helped her out, and we got it done.
That's awesome. All right, so then you have a Mackie 1624 mixer, and this is the same one I have, and it's a great mixer. It has 16 channels.
It's a beast.
Yeah, it's a beast. It's really big. Like, it's bigger than most podcasters would ever need, really. It's you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like the reason I initially bought it was because it has 4 aux sends. And if you remember me telling about my setup, is I literally had 4 computers set up, and I would bring in one guest on Skype on one computer, and on the next computer I'd bring in another guest on a different Skype account. And on the third computer, I'd bring in somebody through Chrome, through Zencaster. And so I wanted my options open. I'd bring everybody in separately and give them all mix minuses. And to do that with 4 computers or 4 participants, you need to be able to send a mix minus to all 4. So you need 4 aux sends. And so I looked around, and like the smaller mixers, they only have 2 aux sends. You literally, the Mackie 1624 is the first level of Mackie mixer that actually has 4 aux sends. So I said, I'll get that one. I think it was like $700, but it's really good. The mic pre's are good too. What are your thoughts so far, John?
I love it, and it's exactly the same thing. I have a feeling that in the next couple of months that Microsoft is going to mess around with Skype, and it's going to break all these recorders. And then you're going to have a bunch of podcasters running around with their hair on fire and not being able to record interviews. And this came from you when I first talked to you. It was probably a year ago. And I saw that you were recording, your guests and bringing people in, and you were actually like an in-studio engineer. And I saw that, and I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to be able to bring people in. Like I have a client, and she is in San Diego, and she has to bring somebody in that doesn't know anything. It's a doctor, and they have a telephone. So then I want to be able to bring them in and have a good recording to send them. So in other words, if somebody wants to do that, they can hire me, and I'll record everything, and I'll send you the audio, or I can process it and send it to you, or you can send me everything, and I can edit the episode and send it back to you, 100% on however you want to do it. So, because like I said, for me, I'm a podcaster who enjoys this, but I also want to be able to help podcasters. And I know some people coming up, again, they don't really have the money, but they still want to do a good show. So then I can kind of tier it to help them out, where it makes it more economical.
Right. Yeah. So the 1624 Mackie has 2 headphone outputs. It has some subgrouping. It's really a nice mixer. It's really nice, and the mic pre's are real nice. They sound good. I think it's the Onyx mic pre's or something they call it, but they're pretty good. They're real good. And all right, so then you have for your interface now. You're using a Focusrite 18i20, which again is something that I've used, and I have one too, and it's awesome. Well, the reason I loved it is because there's 8 XLR inputs. Yeah, baby. Wait, hold on.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's right. And of course, the quality of the Focusrite interfaces are very good. The mic pre's are good, and the analog to digital conversion is good. So you're liking it?
Yeah, I am. And I've already recorded different, like I said, I'm still in the feeling out process as far as bringing people in and recording them from different places. I've done phone to Zencaster, and then, I've done Skype and brought people in Skype where they've recorded on their side. So I've had different variations of how to do this, and I'm still trying to work. And again, here we are, we're using Squadcast. If I can roll it back a little, we're using Squadcast to record and all that. And I'm just hoping that one day they'll get this straightened out where we have one that works.
Yeah.
Because they just don't seem to work. I mean, I've had it where, you have that drift, and it might not even be the fault of, what we're using. It could be the fault of the person. They don't have, great internet, and you're getting a drift from that. So I say the first person that figures out how to do that economically will have their own island.
That's right. And quick question for Barry. Barry, what are some of these companies going to need to really, make, like John is saying, make a product that really just works? What are they going to need?
You're going to need a couple of horses, a a couple of mules.
Okay.
Didn't think of that.
Yeah, see, they didn't think of that. That's the thing. Where's my other clip? Hold on, I'm looking for my other clips. Barry, what else are they going to need?
Saws, hammers, nails.
Anything else?
Beans, coffee, and biscuit. And a little piece of fatback.
See, the little piece of fatback is vital. It's crucial.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. All right, so, yeah, I kind of interrupted you there. Or Barry interrupted you.
No, I was just saying that, the hardest part of the podcast thing is people, like, they have the show that they have. They know the message that they want to send out. They have everything except the technical part. They don't know the technical part. And I just think there's, somebody can do that for them, that they'll help them get the message out. There's a lot of people that are, they have everything they need except that one component. I just want to be the person that can help them with that one component.
Yeah, I actually have audio, or Barry had heard someone who started a podcast, and they had everything except the technical part. And when they were trying to record, they had problems. And Barry, what were they saying?
And they were cussing up a storm. Profanities left, profanities right.
Anything else?
Every second word was a F word.
Right? That's what happens, right? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely it does.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than audio problems. And even just today on my end, I actually did the firmware update for my Mix Pre 6. And when I did the firmware update, I was wondering if any of my settings would be changed. And, I know one of them was, because I wasn't seeing any level back from my computer on the H6. And so I had to go in, and it took me a while to even figure that out. And at first I was like, oh no, it wiped all my settings. Now I got to go find out what changed and what didn't. And that's kind of a pain. But I think that was the only thing that changed. So I once I found it, I changed it to receive the, audio back from my computer, and then that worked. But I mean, geez, when programs update, like if you have any program running on your computer and they're like, oh, we have a new update. As soon as you run the update, there's a big possibility that something's going to break, and now you don't see level here or there, and you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing with Audition. Adobe, they make all these updates, and then what happens is they would put them out, and the first thing I would do is I would run and update. I'm like, oh, look, a new update. Then I learned that sometimes when they update things, they break things. So then what I do is they say, hey, here's an update, and I sit back and I watch the forums. And then, they start saying, hey, this doesn't work, or that's not working. And then finally, when that all calms down and they fix everything, and the second update comes out, that's when I go and I'll download that.
That's a good way to do it. I thought the way I'm going to do it for my new iMac Pro is that maybe every 2 or 3 months I'll upgrade. I'm talking about the operating system of my iMac Pro, because I don't know how many updates are going to be. But I thought, you know what? I'll just wait. I'll wait till 2 or 3 updates stack up, and then I'll just do it all at once. And that way, if anything breaks, I just have to fix it once instead of 3 times.
Well, the issue, because I'm a MacBoy fan myself, so everything I have is Mac. So then you upgrade your operating system, and then all of your software that you're using has not been updated to that software. So then you have problems.
Yeah.
So you do, it's a good idea to let that work. You were talking about not recording. I just had a client where we did an hour show. Everything was going well. I did the pre-check like I was supposed to. Is everything working? Tap on your mic. Okay, I can hear your mic and everything. And I said, all right, because they recorded on their side. And of course, I record a backup copy here. But the problem is that they get heated and they talk over each other. And then because in Audition, what I can do is cut and time shift. So I can cut people out that are talking over each other, or shift it so you can hear both of them or something like that. And then she sent me the audio, and it was an hour of silence. Oh, because I don't know what happened, but it wasn't, the microphone was not working. Now we talked about it later, and I went over everything, and she just bought a brand new MacBook, but so I have the backup recording, but I said I can't do what I normally do with this. There's going to be talking over each other, and I'll do my best with it, but it is what it is. And then the other thing is that it takes longer now because you have a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes even if you think you're doing everything, you're checking everything, there's always something because you're not there. You can't be on their side of the computer. That's the hardest part. You cannot be on their side of the computer, so you can't see.
Recently, funny you bring that up. Recently, I was thinking of a way to actually make that possible for me to be on their computer, and I found this program, or it's an app called Splashtop, and Splashtop, it lets you. I mean, there's a lot of programs like this. It lets you basically, it sends them a message on their computer, and if they accept, then you basically you get to drive their computer. So
look at you. You're like the Batman of podcasting. You have all these wonderful little toys.
Well, I did the trial for Splashtop. I didn't buy it yet because I think it's $120 a year or something. So my idea was if I'm ever doing a session with someone and they're really just technically challenged, I can just maybe jump on their computer and go to the settings, check their mic, check their level, check the, whatever. Make sure there's not, 74 programs running in the background, all that stuff. And it'll work. I did some testing with Splashtop and it worked. It works really well. But again, it's one of those things that when I'm in a session, doing a session, like sometimes you just got to do the best you can do and then get the session started and then just start recording, even if it's not perfect. Because I mean, I've been on sessions where it took 30, 35, 40 minutes to do sound check because someone just, it was a nightmare to sound check them. They started out with earbuds on a PC and then they said, oh, I can connect through FaceTime through my iPhone. And like you try like 7 different ways of connecting and they all don't work or they don't have the mic. And so, at some point in the session, you just have to say, okay, it sounds good enough. Don't move. Let's go. Right?
Right. And I also find that the people that have been podcasting the longest, they're the hardest ones to work with. Like if someone they're like a new guest and they're very receptive to, information. But then people that have been podcasting are like, I know what I'm doing. Okay. And then they send you an hour recording with nothing on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
All right. So the 18i20, the Focusrite, that's an audio interface with 8 XLR inputs. It's really awesome. And of course, the reason you got that is because if you're, and the same reason I had it was because you can record many different microphones in person. You can record an iPad that's playing music. You can record, up to 8 channels of audio, which is really handy because even sometimes if you have an audio interface that has 4 inputs, sometimes you need more than 4.
Yeah. Well, like right now I have in my mixer, I have 3 microphones. That lady in the circle that works for Amazon that you talk to, she's in here. Like if I say, Alexa, what time is it? Oops, Alexa's not connected to the internet, so she doesn't know what time it is.
That's funny.
So once I get done here, I'll connect Alexa to the internet. But it's funny because, there's a lot of games you can play. So with our show, there's a game that we love to play. It's almost like a name that tune game. So then you pick a genre, and then me and my co-host play each other in it, and it gets quite heated, to be quite honest with you. So it's fun to do that. So I have the Alexa in here, and then he has his computer with sound effects, and I have my computer with sound effects, and then there's another one here. Oh, and then I have the sound that's coming out of the computer. So I have 7 channels already. And then if I'm bringing in a phone from another computer, then I need another, input to the, to the mixer. So it's, like I said, this was the setup. If I would have taken the course the year earlier, I would have saved myself about 800 hours in mixers. And I don't know how much time trying to get the Live Track L12 working.
Right.
So,
all right. Barry just slipped me a note, and he said that he has had clients before also who have sent him an audio file, and there was nothing on it. So Barry, what was your response when you opened up the WAV file and it's literally empty?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
Okay. See, I hope you all appreciate the inventiveness that it takes to it's almost like Jeopardy. Like you know what Barry's answer is going to be. So then you got to come up with a dumb question to ask Barry, so it matches and then it's funny, right, John?
That's right. That's exactly right.
It is like Jeopardy.
Yeah, it's some of the shows that I do. I love being able to clip a sound clip of them saying something and then bringing it back in, and when they'll be talking, and then I'll drop a clip in as they're talking. It throws them every time. It kind of stops them, but it's sometimes, and like I said, the She podcast that I do with Elsie and Jess, they just give me carte blanche to whatever I want to do. Like I'm there, and if they're doing something and something happens, and I can just take Elsie and I can just go
fabulous
and drop something like something in there. So it's a lot of fun. You don't do it all the time, but some of the shows that you can have a lot of fun with it.
All right, let's get into post-production. So you basically capture and assemble everything in Adobe Audition, right? That's where you're mixing and you're finalizing everything. So let's talk plugins. Do you use the Isotope RX6?
I just bought that, and It's amazing. And like I said, I'm still learning it. But, cool. And again, it's not a fix everything, but it does so much that it is kind of neat. Like matter of fact, we were talking in the Slack group before this that I had someone, and they have a condenser microphone, and they're talking to their guests, and they're sliding the condenser microphone back and forth across the table, and you're hearing bump, 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 back and forth.
Ooh.
I can't get it out of there because the noise is all the way up into the 1,000 hertz.
Right.
So I can't roll off the bottom, and it's in there. And, I've tried noise reduction, and you just can't get it out of there. And then I say to, him, I said, okay, here's the best I can do with this. Is this acceptable to you? And if it's not, then he just ruined a whole interview.
Right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. So RX6 is awesome. So, all right. In Adobe Audition, what kind of processing, what kind of plugins are you using there?
Well, they have Adobe Audition has they have so many plugins and so many processes and effects that you can use. I don't even know them all, but the stuff that I brought in from the outside was I have that wave that we just used in class. I bought that, and then what is the other one that I have that I use? Oh, and it was because a lot of people, they'll get into an empty room and they'll start recording, and you have that echo hollowness in the room. And the plugin I have, and it's from, oh my God, I'm terrible with this stuff. But basically what that does is it takes the reverb out of the track.
Right.
And it's a de-reverb. Exactly. And I use that. And then that's basically it. But I was really leaning on Aphonic for the longest time for doing the processing of everything. You just drag it in there. I have the desktop version.
Right.
So, and then what I usually drag in, you can't use it for music or anything because it's not good for music, but like voice tracks, if someone's talking, if I have a client that's doing like a pre-interview and they're going to talk about like an intro of their interview in a single track, I can use the single track for that, Aphonic. And then if you have a multi-track, which is nice, you can drag in, 2 or 3 people, and then Aphonic will know who's talking, and it'll shut off the other microphones. So you don't have that crosstalk, or you don't have that in the background. And that's amazing. It is amazing. It saves me so much time.
Yeah, that it's the crossgate feature. It's really, really awesome. And it works great when there's a good signal to noise ratio, meaning that if, like, I've tried to use it, for instance, if like this interview I just mentioned earlier, where these 2 guys were talking on a conference floor and the background noise was really loud, Aphonic multi-track would definitely have problems with that. But if it's just normal recording, like, where the background noise is very low and it's just, the person's voice is recorded loud and clear, yeah, that cross-gating feature is awesome because, like you said, it just basically mutes a person's track if they're not speaking. So it just cleans it up really well. I use that. Yeah, that's one of my secret weapons when there's people just send me tracks. They're like, oh, can you make this sound good? It's like sometimes the first thing I'll do is I'll just throw it through there and just see what happens.
Yeah, and then once I bring it out of there, if I have to tweak it with, sometimes you can just use a little bit of If you're going to use, something just to enhance the voice, just something as far as, the highs and the lows and the mids, I can adjust that. That I've just been starting to do lately, and it kind of gives a nice, rich tone to the voice. So that, for me, is the most important thing. And then what I like to do is I like to process everything before I edit, because I want to hear what I'm editing first. If I edit everything and then run it through the processes, and then and if it doesn't sound good, now what do you do?
Right.
So then you have to go back in and tear it apart and start doing it all over. So I want to know what I'm listening to is processed the way that I want it to sound and everything, and then assemble everything, in the multi-track, and then finally just, make it and put it out.
Right.
As an MP3.
So then when you assemble it, you assemble the multi-track and you tweak all the levels and make it all nicey nice. Then you kind of, in Audition, you have to actually tell it to mix it down, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So then you mix it down, but then you can open up that mix in the, the detailed editing part of Audition?
Well, once I mix it down, that is the last, to be honest with you, that is it. Once I'm done, I just, process it and then just, hit
Got it.
Process, and it mixes everything down the whole session, and it just brings it out as an MP3. Now, I used to mix it at, I used to bring it down as at 44.1 hertz, 16-bit mono, because a lot of the clients, they would be doing 4 shows a week and they were an hour and a half long, and their provider for, like either Lipson or Blueberry or whatever, they would charge them by so many mega, the size of, so they wanted a smaller file. But I don't think people are doing that much anymore. And now, like I said, since taking the class, I'm using it 4,800 hertz and 32-bit. Even, that's just bringing it in now. And even if I want to mix it down later to that, it does make a big difference. And I didn't know that before. I was just doing everything at 44,100, 64, 64
16
kilobytes per second, and it's 16-bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're talking about the WAV file resolutions, and then...
Yes.
Right, and then at the end... So there's 2 things here. One is the resolution of audio that you're working with when you're producing the episode, and then there's the resolution of the final MP3 that you're putting out. So those are 2 different types of files, uncompressed versus compressed.
Right. And I was just using the same, the same wave, the same settings for my uncompressed as I was for the compressed. But now, since I'm using 4,800 and 32-bit and 128, I'm doing things in stereo and then mixing it to mono if they still want that.
Right.
Then, it makes a big difference. It really does. It makes a big difference in the sound.
That's cool.
And who knew?
Yeah, who knew? Well, yeah, I have to say, John, you really took the course seriously, podcast engineering school, and I know you got a lot out of it. And of course, the beauty of podcast engineering school is that you're in the community for life now. So it's like we're gonna be hanging out and talking as over the years, and as new stuff comes out, and it's just gonna be great. So let's do some gossiping about Daryl Darnell and Daniel J. Lewis. What do you think about that? I haven't seen Daryl in a while. I saw him at the last podcast movement, I saw him at Podfest in Florida, and it's just great seeing Daryl. I mean, he's such a nice guy, right? He's kind of like nice, soft-spoken. He's really smart.
Never, you could do something. Well, when I was working at TV Talk, there was a couple times where I took some things on my own. Like, I'm like, okay, well, I can't get a hold of Daryl. It's 4:00 in the morning. Yeah. So I'll do this on my own. And I would send it to him. He's like, "Now you can't do that, John. It's not going to work." So I was like, okay. So he's very calm, even keeled. And the same thing with Daniel J. Lewis. And those 2 guys, to be honest with you, are the ones that really kind of helped me where I am today. Same thing with Daniel. He was just like, okay, John, this is what we're going to do. And he knew that for me, video was the way to do things. And he would just like make these little videos. He'd say, okay, this is what you did wrong. And he'd show me on the video and he'd send it to me. And I'm like, okay, got it. And that would be it. So, it's been a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Daniel just wrapped up the show Once Upon a Time with 350 episodes.
Wow.
The show finally went off. So he had 350 episodes over 7 seasons.
Jeez.
Of the show, 7 years of one show.
That's awesome. So Daniel J. Lewis was session 17 of this show. So if you want to go back and listen to the Daniel J. Lewis session and the Daryl Darnell session, I'm so proud of myself using the word session. Daryl Darnell is 007.
How about that? He's the James Bond of podcasting.
That's a good character for him.
Yes, it is.
007. All right. Well, so this has been great, John. I mean, I'm really happy to talk to you about everything. And we're going to have to, seriously, in another 6 months or so, 6 or 9 months, maybe something like that, we'll have to have you come back because I know you're going to just keep improving and you're building your business. And I just love seeing you build your business and really make a good living in the podcast production space because there's so much business to be had out there. It's insane. And it's just great, man. So congratulations again, brother.
Thank you. I got to thank you for all that you've done for me and, patience that you've had with me through all this. And, just being able to work in the podcasting community, it's every day, you wake up every morning and it's not like, I got to go to work. It's like you wake up and it's like, I got to go to work. And it's nice.
That's awesome. So audioeditingsolutions.com. That's your website. Of course, it'll be in the show notes as well. So there's so much more I wanted to talk about, but we're already past an hour and people need to go take a cold shower or something. Did I tell you?
Barry's got to get home.
I started taking cold showers 2 days ago.
What is that for?
Look on YouTube. It's like physically, it's so helpful on like many, many levels. Like for your autonomic nervous system, for your skin, just for mental toughness. It's crazy. For energy, like you get out of the shower like with a lot of energy instead of like wanting to take a nap when you take a nice hot shower.
The other thing is, I'm sure you don't take long showers. I know that.
What?
So I'm sure you can't take a long shower when you're using cold water.
Yeah.
I think it's like a soap up and wash down and soap up and get out.
Oh, I did. Oh my God. The first one I did 2 days ago, it was like that. Because I turned today I did it and I didn't put the water so cold. Like I kind of stayed medium today because when it was cold, man, it's like, it's crazy. It's like I took a shower, probably a 90-second shower, and I did everything. I washed my hair, my whole body, everything. Did it so fast.
You know how fast you could do it? Tim Ferriss is the one that I first read that said take a cold shower because it boosts your metabolism and it does all that because your body, once you're that cold, your body has to heat it up. So then your body revs up the metabolism to heat your core back up again.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. I still like a hot shower.
Yeah. Good luck with that. All right. Well, thanks again, John Bukenas, Audio Editing Solutions, graduate of Podcast Engineering School. And I forgot to mention, well, if you hung on this long, here's a little tidbit. I'm actually going to be starting an affiliate program for Podcast Engineering School very soon. It's going to be awesome, too. So hopefully you all can be part of that. So, all right, podcastengineeringschool.com is our website. Check out our previous sessions. And, John, you know what you got to yell, right? All right, sound great!
Sound great!